Bryan Johnson has made over $20 million in a single day. In this video, I want to break down scientifically exactly how he did this. That way you can walk away from this video understanding the fundamentals of how and why all of this stuff actually works, so that maybe one day you could recreate something similar for yourself. So I think it's important to consider, who is Bryan anyway? Well, he is a 46-year-old entrepreneur who is currently known as a longevity guru. His goal is to break the current theoretical limits of the human lifespan and to be the first person to run the 4-minute mile, proving the impossible possible, but in this case within the vertical of longevity rather than athleticism. He previously was a venture capitalist who founded Braintree, which acquired Venmo in 2012 for $26 million, and a year later he sold that company to PayPal for about $800 million. His entrepreneurial journey lasted for about 6 years, where he neglected and abused his health, and after climbing out of a dark period in his life, he decided to commit his life to maximizing his health and longevity, which birthed his online movement and the idea and inception of his brand Blueprint. So what is Blueprint? What is Bryan actually selling? We know a little bit about Bryan and who he used to be. What is he doing now? Well, he is selling a subscription-based supplement business. Basically supplements online. He has about 12 different products, and he also has some merch. You can buy individual supplements, you can buy bulk supplements, and you can also just subscribe for the Blueprint stack, and it'll be shipped to you monthly or whenever you need supplements. So this is his entire business. And after launching this, within 24 hours, he made $20 million, giving him a $200 million valuation within the 24th hour of inception of the company, which is pretty impressive. So what actually made this work? Well, first, I want to take a little dive into when did he actually start and how long did it take? Well, Bryan started building his audience 2 years ago, which before he launched his company, it took about 1.5 years before he launched Blueprint. So for about a year and a half, he was building this entire audience, this little empire on social media, a little longevity cult pretty much. And within about a year and a half, he was able to amass about 2 million followers. And while yes, he has a good sized audience, he has a pretty large audience, there are personal brands with much, much larger audiences, and they post a lot higher volume of content, and they don't come near the revenue that Bryan makes, especially on launch day of the company. So what is the science behind Bryan Johnson's business? What is the science behind his brand that makes it work so much better than the majority of brands that we see online today? So first thing we need to do is break down his funnel. And this is a perfect example of the beauty and effectiveness of a stupidly simple funnel. Literally just 4 social media pages. And anybody who has sold a reasonable amount of B2C products online understands that it's purely like a volume game. Volume and leverage, but more so on the volume side because everything has high leverage these days. So the goal is to cast your net as wide as possible, grab as much attention as possible, and channel that attention to the simplest funnel. And Bryan has done just that. So he literally just has 4 different social media accounts: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, which we all have right here. YouTube obviously is the most powerful one because people can watch Bryan for hours and hours upon end and really get to know him and start to become indoctrinated into his way of thinking and into his community or cult or whatever you want to call it. And Bryan was able to grow an audience so quickly because of 3 different reasons. 1, he actually walks the walk. 2, he is trying to solve a problem that 99% of everybody on earth has as the biggest fear, which is the fear of death. And every single human relates with his message to some way or another, whether they like it, whether they hate it. Every single human on earth relates with the idea of death, or the idea of maybe we can live a little longer than we once thought we could. And it's something that many people either hate or they love. It's the most controversial topic on earth, which brings us to number 3. Bryan is a very controversial person, and he talks about the most polarizing topic on earth, which is the possibility for immortality. So breaking down his funnel, looking at the bottom of funnel, since Bryan's funnel largely consists of social media content, and he's not selling anything extremely high ticket, he doesn't really need like a lot of nurturing. And in fact, he does have an email list, but it's basically just a bunch of call to actions. And he doesn't really need a lot of long form copy being sent through emails, telling stories all the time. And he just doesn't need all of that. He just needs a few simple lines and a call to action, because his brand on social media is so strong, and anybody who would ever sign up to his email list is already pretty much fully indoctrinated, and they probably want to live longer, and to do so they probably want to buy Bryan's supplements because, well, Bryan walks the walk. And it's literally that simple. So like I said, here's an example of a screenshot from his email list in the top left picture. And it's literally just a call to action to say, start your supplements. And his bottom of funnel is as stupidly simple as it gets. It's his website, right? So it's literally a website that you click, and it has his products. And then he also has a link in bio using Comey.io. And if you look in the top right corner and the bottom left corner, you can see an example of this. And it's a pretty relatively simple link in bio. It just takes you to his social media accounts, takes you to his website, and it takes you to some of his top selling products just linked directly on the social media link itself. And then the most complex part of his entire funnel is if you scroll to the bottom of the Comey.io link. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see in the bottom left corner, we have some affiliate links from some of the products that Bryan uses that he likes, and he is affiliated with the companies. And this is how he brings in revenue for all of his different sources of income that I know of. So what makes this work at a psychological level? So Bryan has positioned himself in an extremely unique way. He is documenting the first ever journey up Mount Everest. He is leveraging the most polarizing topic that anyone on earth could possibly relate to: death. And he is stimulating the most curious and the most controversial parts of the human experience. The question of, what if immortality is actually possible? What if this isn't impossible at all? And it's a literal cult building tactic to find an extremely polarizing topic that many people want to believe is true and try to show them that it's actually possible by embodying the guru who is doing it himself. And when I say cult, there's two types of cults. There's a bad cult that are trying to do bad things, and then there's the good cult who's trying to do good things. A lot of people just call the good cult a community or an audience. But really, I mean, they're the same thing. Anyways, that's out of the way. So what Bryan does here, whenever he is building this audience of people that are all aligned on the mission of, what if we can live longer as a species? What if we could even possibly live forever? Like biological immortality. Obviously, a bus could kill you. But what if you could live almost forever, as long as you don't die from like getting shot? So he builds this audience, and then he makes an us versus them dynamic by throwing stones at other people who are against his mission. Bryan does this consistently with topics, especially topics like religion, that don't really like the topics that Bryan talks about. And then Bryan throws stones at religions, which is a very controversial thing to do, and a lot of people wouldn't like, but the people in his community are starting to like it, right? So another thing Bryan is great at is stimulating the Lollapalooza effect, which is when multiple cognitive biases are stimulated simultaneously. And this changes a consumer's belief, it changes their thinking patterns, and therefore it changes their decisions as a whole. And on top of that, Bryan is an expert at playing into the algorithms of these social media platforms, and he adjusts the voice and tone of his content to mirror that of the best performing content per platform. So that specific platform, he just adapts his content for that. So let's look at this. Not only is he talking about the most controversial topic on earth, but he's saying it's solvable. And this is something that goes against a lot of like beliefs spiritually, beliefs logically, beliefs scientifically, like everything that people once thought was true, he's trying to prove wrong, which is in a lot of ways pretty admirable, to be able to prove that humans can live longer, to climb Mount Everest for the first time ever and document the entire journey, to run the 4-minute mile, prove it possible so others can follow in your footsteps. It's pretty admirable whenever you look at it from that lens. But it's also extremely controversial because it talks about something that many people think shouldn't be done or just should be purely impossible to begin with. So now that we understand a bit about the psychology behind this, what makes this work at an economic or a mathematical level? So the thing is, every living conscious entity on Earth relates to Bryan's message in one way or another. Meaning his total adjustable market, his TAM, is literally everyone who has a subjective experience. This fact, combined with the fundamental nature of the problem Bryan is trying to solve, causes a pretty aggressive exponential growth effect. And I personally think that Bryan is only scratching the surface of what his brand will have in the near future. And he has already mentioned things such as creating his own nation state, which only makes people more drawn to him because he's doing things even more crazy. And I think this is only the beginning. This is, pretty interesting problems to be tackling, pretty interesting claims to make, and pretty interesting life to be trying to lead and building a community around. So I think it's pretty self-evident, but what makes Bryan so much different than others? Because whenever we're trying to build a brand and we're trying to stand out in the sea of noise, it is important to know what are the things that can give us that capability. So number one, he has an insanely crazy mission that is the most controversial mission that one could probably have on the planet Earth. 2, he walks the walk and documents it. He is documenting climbing Mount Everest for the first time ever. Number 3, he is unapologetically himself. Number 4, he positions himself against the deeply rooted and strong common spiritual beliefs and just ethical beliefs and scientific beliefs of human nature. And all of these things together combined give an intense Lollapalooza effect that is very strong and builds a cult-like audience and builds a loyal consumer base. So if you've stuck this far through the video, I just want to thank you. I want to say that the reason I'm making these types of videos is to show examples of what actually works and kind of show the science behind it so you understand how and why it works, and then maybe you can replicate it for yourself. If you want to break this down, this entire slide deck down into very simple frameworks that you can look at, analyze, ask yourself the questions, and then answer them to try to replicate something like Bryan has done, here are those 7 questions. So who is Bryan? So who are you? What does he sell? What do you sell? When did he start? When are you going to start? Or when did you start if you've already started? And then we broke down his simple funnel. So what is your simple funnel? And then we looked at the psychology behind his brand. So what psychological cues, what psychology are you going to play into with your brand? What is the narrative that you're going to create that stimulates those psychological cues? What is the entire essence of your brand? What is the mission? What is the vision? What is the values? Bryan's are all very obvious. If you look at any of his content, it is written all over it. And that is why he is able to build such a cult-like community, because he has this greater mission, this greater vision that he can align people on. And that stimulates such a strong effect. And then again, he positions himself against the enemies that are against his plan. Very strong. So that's the psychology. And then we looked at the unit economics What is the total adjustable market? What are the what are the potential profit margins? It doesn't look like Bryan does any paid advertising to me. He does mainly organic marketing and he sells e-commerce products. I don't know what the margins are on the products, but the unit economics I'm looking at here is the total adjustable market, because you can sell a digital product and have pretty much all profit. And as long as you have good social media and you have you're good at creating content that converts people into sales, then it doesn't really matter if you have a physical product, if you have a digital product. In my opinion, you're better off having a digital product, because now you have the margins there to play with and you don't have to deal with returns and all of that good stuff. So those are the unit economics. What are your unit economics? I suggest starting a digital product, probably something like a community business or something like that. And then we summed all of this up to see what makes him unique. So sum up all of these things, all 6 of those questions, and then ask what makes you unique compared to the rest of the competitors, the rest of the competition in your niche. Or you can be like Bryan and create your own niche. And that's the best way to play. Competition is for losers, as Peter Thiel says. So now you have an example to model after, and all you have to do is plug in your own answers to the above questions. If you want to see how I am growing my business online using similar principles to these, feel free to subscribe. Now, before you leave the video, one thing I want to mention is my free community that is linked in the first link in the description below. This is for anybody who wants to learn how to build an online community-based business. If you already have a pretty big audience and you want to learn how to sell some type of digital product online, this is good for you. If you are interested in artificial intelligence, you want to learn how to leverage it to automate your company and even have the potential to remove employees altogether by automating the tasks that they're doing with artificial intelligence, this is a great community for you as well. And if you want to just scale a community business, if you already have one or any type of business you have, we have the processes of scaling things by tracking the numbers, looking at the KPIs, using artificial intelligence, and just using different types of leveraged marketing tactics with high amounts of volume to actually put in more inputs so that you can get greater outputs. And if you are somebody who would be interested in any of the things I just mentioned, again, first link in the description below, completely free community. Please join, and I will see you on the other side.